Today we are joined by an absolute champion of Australian cycling. He has, if anyone here has been riding a bike for a certain amount of time, he's probably been riding for longer at a very high level in Australian cycling anyway. He was this year's winner of the Melbourne to Warrnambool. He's raced around Buninyong Nationals 20 times and finished in the top 10 25 times somehow. But he is everyone's favourite bloke in Australian cycling. Mark O'Brien, welcome to Train Like a Monk.
Thanks, Si. Thanks for having me, mate. I've been enjoying watching them since you first started with was it Jensen back in the early
Yeah,
days?
Jensen was ripping the band-aid off. Yep.
Yeah. Now you spread your wings, flying along, getting
Yep.
all the people on there. And now you're down at the dreg. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. Yeah, ran out of people to get on, so I pulled up Marko. It's funny because we obviously used to be training partners quite a bit in Melbourne, and you have earned the nickname Radio, and it's probably more podcast now because no one listens to the radio anymore.
Yeah,
So you could definitely do a solo podcast here. I could just shut up and just include the occasional yep, which
yeah,
I'm copping a bit of flack for how many yeps I add in here, but that was genuinely the ride audio when I do my training rides with Marko. Just 5 hours of Marko going through all the different topics, cycling related or non-cycling related, and then I'd just add in the occasional yep.
yeah. Just set me on a tangent. I'll be on my way. Just got to
Yeah,
give me a direction you want this podcast to go, and I'll be in.
yeah, well, could go a lot of directions. We do have some listener questions, which is really good, and a few little curveballs in there. But to start us off, a lot of people that, for anyone that doesn't know Marko, yeah, he's been super consistent for the last 15, 20 years now in Australian cycling, just always up there in every race here. My sort of relationship with Marko's been a little bit different because not many people will even remember because it was such a short-lived career where Marko wasn't actually a rider. He was a DS for a while there, which DS alone was questionable. He was definitely still training more than most of the people on our team. But if we take it right back, I met Marko. He was out here with the Avanti team, I think it was called then, which is now Bridge Lane, which is about to finally not exist after just a career just about as long as Marko's, or a span in Australian cycling just about that long. So that team has always been the best team in Australian cycling. They were out here. They were training up for Tour of Gippsland, which was going to be my first NRS race back when I was still in school. I think I was 17 at the time, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. This team's out here, Marko's out here, and yeah, remember Marko at that stage was already coaching, and what, you would have been mid-20s then?
Yeah. I reckon I started in, especially once I was back with Avanti, so sort of Australian based. I knew that I wasn't going to the top tier,
Yep,
like I always wanted to. So sort of like had resigned a few years before that. That it's like, all right, I'm not going to the top level, but I still love riding. And
yep,
then I was getting paid just small wage from Avanti, but need to subsidise that a bit as well. So then I started. I'd been coaching myself on and off for quite a few years. I first had Timmy Decker coaching me, who's now the Australian national coach. But yeah, Tim, I was one of his first athletes early days. And then for a few years there, I'd sort of write my program and then he'd check over it. Probably because I was such a head case and wanted to add extra. So he's like, sure, just let him write it. And then I had a
yep.
similar with Mark Fenner, who started coaching me in 2013 when I was over in the UK racing. And then, yeah, from that, I sort of talked to him about it and said, oh, can I do some coaching alongside you? And he put on a couple of associate coaches. So it would have been about 2014, 2015 that I started coaching a
Yep.
few guys. And then it sort of kept that going. And as you mentioned, then sort of had a couple of years there DSing where you were, I was your
Yeah.
boss.
Yeah. You're the big,
Yeah,
the big boss, big scary boss. No,
huge.
so,
Yeah,
so,
terrible.
yeah, 10 years ago, you'd resigned to not making it to the top level, and 10 years later, you're still kicking most of the guys' ass that are still thinking they're going to get to the top level. So it's an interesting story there. But yeah, along the way, you at some point, yeah, decided, right, you're backing off completely the racing, took on the DS role. Again,
Mm.
sort of a small wage subsidized by coaching, I imagine, there. And then at the time you were still training quite a bit and still trying to help us out in some races as a rider as well to just do a job. And I remember distinctly one race we did Oceania National Continental Champs in Canberra, and this was probably 3 months into your DS career. And yeah, you showed up, and we had two of us going, myself and Jesse Featonby on the Drapac team going really well, and we were there in the front group of 10, and we basically just got worked over by the young Australian national team boys. So Lucas Hamilton, I think Storer might have been there. Can't remember who else. They worked us over, and I remember you looking back after the race, going, "I never want to show up to a race that unfit again." Because I think
Yeah.
you were able to help us out for the first hour or so, and then yeah, we just got isolated there and worked over. So,
Yeah.
do you even remember that race? And was that a point where you just thought, "No, I want to still stay fit for every race I do," or was there other things that made you
I think
decide, "Hang on, I actually want to be fit as hell and be able to beat these guys on any race day"?
I think that one in particular, I do remember that well. With I think Lucas Storer was even Hinley maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Like that was a pretty good team there, and I remember they went 1, 2, maybe 1, 2, 3, and then
Yeah,
I think Sean Lake might have finished fourth with them or something like that.
yeah,
Who won elite title anyway? But I got my head kicked in there, and I was like, that was horrible. Like I sort of always prided myself on being fit at every race I showed up to, and then actually line up for a race. I know I was DSing at the time anyway. So it wasn't really my job. I was like,
yeah,
if I'm going to put a number on, like I want to make sure I'm fit enough, and then to do it. But then like after that, basically only raced club crits, and then would line up for nationals, where I could sort of train up for that because as a DS, like especially Australian-based DS, like we're not racing that much. So it was basically I was training with you guys, and I could actually see how everyone was going. So I found that really beneficial to actually ride with the guys, and you could sort of see who was putting in the work, who was actually going really well. But numbers don't always tell the full story.
yeah,
I think you get a better idea of how guys actually race, being in the race with them. But then, that was sort of a turning point to an extent in that, like, I'm like, well, I'm not lining up at a proper race unless I'm fit. So then
yeah,
I was pretty well for those couple of years, only line up at nationals and then clubbies because they're fun. And then, I think I got to like most of the way through that second year DSing, and I was sort of like, well, I love bike riding, but I don't actually love like driving behind bike riding.
mm,
Like it's
yeah.
still love
It's
riding my bike, and if any other job, I could still ride and race on a weekend if I chose to. Whereas this one was the sort of thing of like I actually love racing, even if it's not the top level. Like I still love racing, and this is pretty much the only job that says no, you can't do it because you've actually got a job to do on race day.
yeah,
Um, and I think also my wife, she was fine to support me when I was trying to be a bike rider and still like getting a lot of opportunity, or at least not out of pocket riding my bike. But then when I was spending just as much time away from home, but not actually chasing the thing that I
mm,
loved, or getting to do the thing that I loved, then she was less about it. So after that, sort of like I guess started looking at different job opportunities, and then sort of stopped DSing, started in construction through a mate, and then I was just like, oh, maybe I'll line up for the Warrnie, and then that's when my mate Paddy Lane, who was running the Inform team, he's like, oh, you may as well just do it with us, and then it sort of led from there. That I spent the next 3 years racing with the Inform mob, pretty much same thing as I'd line up fit for nationals, and then the Warrnie, and then any other race that we did, I was just like, well, I'm just going to work for the young guys and help them try to get a result to try to help them do what I couldn't do.
yep.
Still like to sort of go to nationals and give it a proper crack, just because it's a bit of fun. Like it's a good chance to race with the best guys in Australia, and then on a attritional course, which suits me. And a lot of our racing in Australia just isn't that.
Yeah, so the one of the questions I had actually was the fact that everyone says that the modern cycling is crazy, like everything's improved so much, it's so much harder than what it used to be, the level's so high, all the things that you've been hearing. You've just sort of bucked the trend by coming out and winning the Warnie this year and touching up all the young blokes who are apparently doing all these crazy numbers and all these incredible things. Have you actually seen your numbers themselves improve that much over that time? Or are there other things you can attribute to still having the success now despite the level moving up so high? Or do you just think that everyone's talking absolute bulldust and the level's still the same as it was?
I think that's a really good question. I think my numbers on some parameters have improved, and then I think the move to carbohydrate, like a lot heavier on the carbohydrate, has
Yeah.
made a massive difference. So I'd say I've followed the trend anyway, and the bikes have got faster for me as well as everyone else. And then the
Mm.
aero equipment, skin suits, aero socks, aero helmets, all that is all I've done that as well. So like sort of increase in speed, but then
Yeah.
purely power wise, I think my actual highest numbers, like my top like peak numbers for 1 minute in particular is not, I guess, probably worse. 5 minutes is similar, and then I think extended beyond that, I'm probably a lot of them are better in that. I think just sorry, TJ, after this will get rid of the dog. 2 seconds.
Nah, it's no dramas.
Um, the Yeah, I think the so moving a lot heavier on the carbohydrate train. I was a shocker forever and a day. Like the I'd say it's disordered eating in that
Mm,
basically trying to manage weight through training volume. So particularly in the last few years, in like that I don't have the discipline to go right. I'm just going to eat salad and not enjoy wine and beer. So then I'd basically be using volume on the bike to counteract that, so I'm not putting on a ton of weight. And
yeah.
then so it's a bit of a hard one for someone like me. It's had this ingrained in me for forever and a day that now the thing is just down as much carb as possible. But then I had a few races where I think the first one I did it properly was Dirty Warrnie last year.
Yeah.
My mate Cam Hudson had started up Soul Nutrition and gave me a tub to try. He's like, "Oh, just give it a run, see how it goes." And then I suddenly, because I didn't do any rides longer than maybe up to 5 hours, like when I was prepping for that, and it's about an 8 hour race. But yeah, just kept eating, drinking, and just downing, trying to aim for over 100 carbs an hour. Where in the past I'd do a 5 hour ride on one muesli bar and be fine. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a difference, and like gut not coming undone. All of a sudden, I was in the last hour of it, and like I actually still feel pretty bloody good. And that's, I think, say at the Warnie, I've always had good endurance and always been able to get into that last 60k and feeling like pretty good. But then this year, I literally got to 200k mark, and I was like, I don't even feel like I've started racing yet. Like, I had no fatigue in my body whatsoever. So I think still young guys in shorter races at times are still doing these crazy numbers, but still, I think in that long duration stuff, there's still, I guess, that base fitness and hard endurance,
Mm,
and you see how much energy they waste throughout the race just because they haven't done those long, hard races over in Europe to develop them. Yeah, sort of just not accustomed to it in Australia. But I do say that the even the carbohydrate thing, I joked around with a mate. It's kind of the equivalent of me saying I'm now better over a 6 hour race and feeling stronger than ever. But also, it's kind of like buying a house and then telling me how much value it's gone up in, but the whole neighborhood's gone up in value as well.
yeah.
Like, so I feel like I've probably have got better, but everyone around me has also got better. It's not like I found this magic secret that no one else knows about.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I feel like it's everyone has gone up together, so it's not really. I guess you're not really standing out per se. Like it's more. Yeah, I do notice the better, like the levels better for longer in these races, but yeah, I think there's. Yeah, I don't know if it has really improved my chances, but there's no doubt in that the general level across the board has got better, and then that's been reflected in higher watts per kilo numbers being thrown down at the end of races in Australia, in the lower levels in Europe, and then of course at the top levels with Poggy and Jonas doing stupid things.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point there. That yeah, it is improving, but I think yeah, you one thing that you can bring to it or that has helped you is, as you said, just being prepared to move with it and being prepared to make those changes. And I guess we'll get into the coaching later as well, but that's really important as an athlete and as a coach, like in sport, but in anything. But as things move, you can sit there and say, well, this is the way we've always done it. We know this works. This is fine. Like we know if you want to manage your weight, you could go out and do what we were doing, which was yeah the 5 hour rides off one muesli bar, or like yeah when I was riding with you. I'd be bragging to you about how I could get to Healesville without breakfast. Like
Yeah,
we'd do the loop there, and I'd just be saying, "Oh, this is sweet. We've been on the pedals for 3 hours and haven't had to eat yet," which is
yeah,
great because then like I'd lose the weight that I needed to in time for nationals and be fine. But then yeah, now I look back at that and I'm sure you're the same and just think, imagine if I'd been fueling those rides, riding up Kinglake at 390 watts instead of 370 because I used to think it was so cool that I could ride at that off that, but in at the end of the day I was just wasting the sessions that were feeling just as hard but could have actually been at a higher intensity if I had been fueling them correctly. And I think, yeah, the point I'm trying to make is that if you are prepared to adapt and move with the aero stuff, with the new bikes, with the fueling, with these new things coming out and being prepared to modify your methods, what you're doing, also, yeah, when you're coaching other athletes, what they're doing as well, then there's no reason for you to fall behind the young guys coming through. You can improve at the same rate as them. It is obviously going to be hard because everyone's got those advantages and none of them are particularly new, but if you still want to be prepared to adapt to be able to keep up, I guess, and to still go for those wins.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like there's actually someone was saying that the sort of the young guys now are doing so well in the world tour level. I think historically we never had the means to fuel properly for a long race.
Mm,
So I guess when you get to my age, you've got this natural endurance diesel about you, so that I could do the
yeah,
Warrnie, and if I was racing everyone and we all only could have 30 or 40 grams of carb an hour, then I'd be better off because I've got this long durability in me. I've been riding for so long, and that's what you'd see. Like you'd say the classics or Tour de France or anything like that. You had to have like years of conditioning and hardening to then be able to actually do it because you're so underfueled. But then now, because younger guys are so more carb reliant than older guys, then now they've actually got the means to fuel properly. So they've always had these peak numbers that were comparable to the top guys, but they just never could do it when it mattered at the end of a hard
yeah,
race. And I think now young guys coming straight from juniors, knowing how to fuel, knowing all about it, well, not probably knowing more about aero and recovery methodologies, all this than the actual top guys do, because like young guys just get right into it. And now you're seeing a lot more of them being competitive immediately out of juniors or early in under 23. So it is super interesting how much it's changed.
and speaking of young guys, I want to get onto some of these questions because a few of these are your young guys, I think, sending these ones through. So I'll get through to these before the usual run. So uh, Julian Baudry wants to know who's your easiest slash hardest slash most annoying athlete to coach. It's pretty tricky with those three. I know you're not going to throw anyone under the bus then, but just some generalizations. Who do you like coaching and who do you hate coaching? Like, I don't expect you to name names. You might throw a few people under the bus here, but who's the ideal athlete you have to coach?
It's actually a great question. I'd say, well, Julian's actually been really good, but I'd say Max Gould as well. These young
Well,
guys,
Max has sent in a question as well, so I'll get to
right,
his after this.
these young guys, I've got a few of them here, like Curtis Harrison, much the same. These guys, young guys, are so keen to do well that I could basically say on there like every 1 minute tap your nose 3 times, and these guys would like, yeah, it's like
Yeah,
they're really great, work really hard, like they're all doing the right things with fueling and everything, and then actually trying to nail the efforts because you need the buy-in. So I'd say anyone that's actually my favorite athletes to coach are the ones that are enthusiastic, motivated, and then, as I say to them, I get all the guys to comment on their rides after every ride so that I can at least track how they're feeling, make any changes quickly before they start getting in a hole, and then
yeah,
those are the guys that actually are getting amped. They can write me a whole paragraph or a full story about how they got chased by a dog and whatever, and I'll be into it as long as they're motivated and up and about, and they're the ones that get the most out of training as well because you get that buy-in together and it's like a partnership. So I'd say quite a few of those young guys are excellent at hitting it. I'd say worst coach probably Kerry. No, I got Kerry because he refuses to use a power meter.
that's relatable. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
had
yeah.
Kerry on the books as well.
Yeah. You got no. Kez is a legend, but yeah, stir him up because he's actually riding really well, but refuses to ride a power meter out the road because he wants to have the El Natural feel out
Yeah.
there. But that's why I'm still working him on his pacing. He'll absolutely doors off at the bottom of a hill and then be cooked by the top. And I was like, this would be an easy thing to solve if
Yeah.
no, he's not. No, it's still fun to coach. I actually enjoy coaching all of them. The ones that I'd say I don't like, love coaching are the opposite of what I mentioned at the start. The guys that aren't motivated, and I'm basically trying to be a cheerleader to get them out the door.
Yeah.
That's where I don't not in my element in it because
Mm.
I guess it's not something I can relate to as much because
Yeah.
I'm
No, I'm
mo-
very much in the same boat there. Like any, that's one thing I say whenever a new athlete comes on board is has to be you that wants this. Like it's all great if I want you to be a great cyclist and I want you to level up, and whether it's from B grade to A grade or from Conti to World Tour. But if you don't want that, it doesn't matter how much I want it and how perfectly I prescribe every single training session. You're just not going to get there. So it has to just be that intrinsic thing from the athlete. And I'd agree with you. Then when there is that intrinsic motivation and they really want it, then it's just a joy to coach. And the opposite side is the opposite.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, you just say if you're trying to like motivate them to get out of bed, it's like it's not a very sustainable thing, and you can't do that every day. And actually, unless I was coaching my wife Kat, and then I could physically be like, "Matt, get out of bed." You can't be there for it. So it's like even if you don't go out and feel like doing the session and don't want to do the efforts, if you still ride your bike, like I'm not going to grill you about it, but yeah. So I think of just like red on it. You're
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to you're like, mate, like why are you bothering doing this? Like
yeah,
if
yeah,
you actually want to
yeah,
do it. So
yeah,
they're the ones I struggle with, mate. But yeah,
yeah.
in general, I'm like the keener you are, the keener I am.
Yep, I agree with that. So going on to Max's question, I have been racing against him at Glenvale, going crazy well. For a guy that's so scrawny and skinny, he is incredibly strong. And then he's come out to the Dandenongs with me a few times after, which that might have shown up as an orange on Training Peaks. I'm pretty sure I did the classic thing you've done to most riders, I think. Just, it's not that much further. Just come along, you'll be right. Oh, you'll still make it home within your 4 hour ride. And then sure enough, we're at Emerald Bakery and he's done 4.5 hours. I
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
don't worry, Marko won't be annoyed at you for that. But and
Well, I
he was
think
getting really worried because he wanted that green on Training Peaks.
no, well, I think with that, before you get on his question, I think so often with those, there's something to be said about happiness watts, as I like to call them. Like,
Yeah.
like if
Yeah.
you're going out and there's a crew, like real good blokes, you've had a great race, felt strong, you go out and do a couple of climbs, even the legs are burned a bit, you go have something tasty at the bakery. Like it's
Yeah.
so mentally easy. It's just so easy on the brain. Everyone's basically got a recovery on Monday anyway. So you're going to get an easy day the next day. Worst case, if he's absolutely fried from that ride when he gets home, he'll be stoked with himself. He'll message me the next day going, "Hey, like I'm pretty cooked today," and I'm like, "All right, well, let's take tomorrow easy as well." And all of a sudden,
Yeah.
you're done. You've had a really great day. It actually gets people more motivated because it was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's no real harm done. Everyone has a blowout session every now and then where they get sucked in and go too far, and like nothing's undoable.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, and if you're in a good spot mentally, then it goes a long way.
Yeah, I massively agree with that one, and it's one reason why, like, yeah, those happiness watts is what gives all the Aussies, I think, a boost at the start of the season. Is you just get so many of those sessions over
Yeah,
December and January, and then they get to the point where, yeah, all the Europeans are getting sadness watts sitting on their ergos inside, doing 4 hour rides, trying to get anywhere near that kind of training. So I think it's a big advantage. But on to Max's question, he just wants to know what the hardest race you've ever done was. So probably a tricky one because I'm sure you've done plenty of crazy hard races, but what would that one be?
Um, let me see. Well, I think the hardest actually no, I think recently the Dirty Warrnie last year. Because like most of the time, as I said, I only did maybe up to sort of a 5 hour ride for it, like with dad duties and whatever else. Might have done hell ride plus a Mount P or something, and go. I'll be home by 11 and happy as. But so didn't do massive volume for it. Fueled well throughout, but then I remember the last. Tim Cutler got up the road. No one actually knew that he'd gone away from the break that we could see. And then I broke away solo, got to the feed, and they're like, "Oh, the front's at 11 minutes." And gravel doesn't really have a team to go to the front and start riding.
Nah.
So we all start racing, and then a few guys come away, and yeah, keep chipping away, and then got him down to 8 minutes or something like that. And then the guys I was with were a bit cooked. Hit them, went away solo, and I was getting these countdowns, and 7 minutes, 6 minutes, 5 minutes, and like it's 40k headwind home. It's like, oh, it's starting to hurt a bit. Like I think I was TTing and maybe doing like 350 watts or something like that. Like suffering away. You're 7.5 hours in, and then I remember I got down like 4 minutes, 3 minutes, and I was like 3.5 minutes, and start going back the other way. I remember a bar in my mouth that took me maybe. Oh, hey, buddy. Sorry, I've got a special guest here.
That's okay.
Yeah, I remember. Sorry, I remember having a bar in my mouth that took me about 10 minutes to chew one mouthful. Like it was so cooked. Sorry,
Yeah.
got
No,
the
that's no
running in
worries.
and my mum. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I had a bar in my mouth and I was just taking like one bite and just like, oh. I just could not do it to myself. And yeah, I got
Yeah.
to the end and I was genuinely just laying on the ground. I haven't had that feeling. I was actually cooked still until about the Wednesday, where normally I'm someone that bounces back pretty quick. And the next day I could basically, go, when you used to do the Warrnie and then you go race Glenvale the next day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah.
used like that, where you go do a crit the next day, no worries. Like you're a bit tired, but you're fine. And this one was like, next day I was just like, nah, I'm not right. Like genuinely cooked. So that one was a self-inflicted hard one. But I've had many times where I've just been on the receiving end all day. Like whether I was not fit enough or like I think I'd had the flu leading into Tour of Bretagne one year, so every day was horrible. I remember like 10 minutes before my TT started, I was napping in the van. Like I just like absolute broken man. So I'd say a couple of those would be the hardest, but in terms of self-inflicted hardest, the actual dirty Warnie last year was pretty nasty with how much of a hole I was in at the end.
Yeah. No, good stuff. And then last viewer question before listener question before we get into our usual ones. So I've seen a few interviews coming out. You got the big call up to cycling news. They're covering all the big stories. Mark O'Brien's pending retirement or lack thereof.
Yeah.
So I did love your quote that became the headline there, and love a good cycling news. Clearly, love a good headline quote to get on there. But you can repeat it if you can remember it. The fisherman one. What'd you say?
Yeah, well, I think they actually misquoted it because Simone who was interviewing said, "Oh, like weren't you already retired?" And I was like, "Well, you can't retire from a hobby." I said,
Yep.
no one ever asked a fisherman when he's going to stop fishing."
Yep.
Because yeah, I don't.
Well,
Yeah, sorry, you
that's
go.
the question. That's the question. So Nick Scolari has said, "What's your thoughts on non-pros announcing their retirement?" So
Yeah.
yeah, what's it? I guess that's probably where you've come from there with that idea. But you've got all of these people that are not professionals that are then announcing their retirement from something that that was never their career
Yeah,
to begin with.
I'm yeah. So I'll close this door before I answer your question.
Nah, no dramas.
Yeah, just to tell the life, cats out.
Yeah,
The Christmas party season. I very much, and I never ever myself personally have never said I'm retiring, because I never saw myself as making it. Like I raced for Conti teams, but I like never went, pro tour or pro Conti, and so I'd never say like you're putting away a heap of money for the future and anything. I love doing it, always love doing it, but I'm like, I never made it, so I can't actually retire anyway. And I'm never going to stop riding because I love riding. So I don't see the
yeah,
point of
yeah.
putting
Announcing.
a retirement post like my mum and dad. If that was the case, they'd already know, and they're pretty much the only ones that would actually care. Most people just like roll their eyes or send it around a group chat. It's like
Mm,
no one was like hanging on this moment, going, "Geez, I wonder what they're doing next year." If you've just been racing amateur and a few kermesses here and there, so
yeah,
that's my general take on it. But I don't
yeah.
understand the if you're say for you, sorry, so you've raced at the highest level, you've been doing Roubaix and that sort of thing, and even if you go, all right, next year I don't feel like racing anymore. Like you could still go do clubbies, you still ride your bike because you love.
Yeah, well, that's the thing for me, and in the same boat as you in that the yeah, for me, I'll be someone that always enjoys racing my bike. So, and then it's the same thing for the majority of the time that I've been racing my bike. It hasn't been as a profession for income, and very likely next year we'll be in the same boat again, where it's because I enjoy doing it. Yeah, you get some perks here and there. You might get a free bike or some free kit, some shoes that you plug on Instagram, and then you get those. But for the most part, it's because you enjoy doing it. So then that doesn't make me any different to the bunch of old blokes I train with at Warrnambool down the road and the bunch rides in the mornings. And they don't announce their retirement from cycling when they eventually downgrade to a different club ride or something. So
Yeah,
yeah, I see where you're coming from with
yeah,
the whole
yeah. Like
premise there.
yeah, it's a weird one for if you've raced like at a high-ish level that it's like you're expected just to stop. Whereas, like as you
Yeah,
said, you can go on and do the vets races. It's like as a 7-year-old, and no one's even questioning them.
yeah,
I think what actually probably burnt in my brain. I probably got a stronger opinion on this than most, as Nick Scolari knows. But I think it was Scott McGrory in Bendigo when I was maybe 18, and someone did that announcement post about how they'll retire and stuff. Like I don't know, it was probably on MySpace at the time, But
yeah.
he said, "What a joke! Like you never made it to the top tier. Like you're not retiring, you're just quitting."
Yeah, pretty much. That's the standard
Yeah,
thing. And yeah, as you said, it makes it around all the group chats, and that's about all it achieves. But
yeah.
we will move on to the usual run of questions because otherwise we'll be here all day. So, what is your favourite training session?
Um, right. I think for me, it's changed. Now I'd probably say actually my favorite training session is actually a morning. Well, actually, my favorite day now is a Wednesday because I go to the Belgie bunch, which is a bunch in Melbourne on gravel bikes where there's basically a few segments where you gas it, a few segments where it eases off, you go for coffee afterwards, and then Wednesday evenings is the Q crit, which is pretty much my favorite night through summer because it's like the ultimate over under session. Even if you're trying to race it easy, you still got a roughly 20-second hill you're doing hill sprints on. My sprint's terrible, but as summer progresses, it gets better because you're forced to punch up the hill every single lap. And then you got 40 seconds of, or 45 ish of basically like on the gas, but not full. And then you're doing another hill sprint. So it's like an ultimate over under session, really. And of course, we go for a beer after. But so now I'd say purely for myself, because I started doing efforts when I was maybe 14, and then 13, 14, and then I've done that through till I was early 30s, and then now pretty much all my training is riding around solid zone 2, and then going really hard on a couple of like hell ride and then a Q crit and a bit of the Belgian. I get my intensity pretty much from
Yep.
that, and then once the fitness starts going up in summer, I'll go and find a random com that I probably want to chase, and I'll get a max 20 odd minute effort every
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah,
I'm hunting, so but I think I'm largely benefiting from the amount of years I actually did structured intervals. But
yeah,
I guess when you break it down, you're pretty much doing a 80-20 sort of
yeah.
breakdown way of endurance versus high intensity. It's just coming in a non-perfect way, but a way that is certainly good for my brain, which goes a long way. But
Well, yeah, it's interesting. Like the when I look back at the times that I'm flying, and I remember having some conversations with you actually, like it'd be start of December, sometimes even just mid-November, and I'll race Hawthorn, just be have one of those days where you're on, can't feel the chain, and then just putting the hurt on everyone, and then hopefully get away with you, so it's an easy sprint win at the end. This
yeah,
is but back in the glory days, but yeah, the and then I remember you coming up and saying, "Why are you going so well? There's no races now. Like, what's your what's your plan here? Why are you trying to peak for now?" And I'd sort of just say, "It's not intentional. Like, I've just been basically doing that program you said of just a few bunch rides here and there, 2 crits a week, and then just some rides with my mates where we just half wheel each other for a bit of the day, which yeah,
yeah,
is you getting your zone 2 there." And then, yeah, that's just your perfect. If you break it down, you're probably getting your perfect mix of intensities there throughout the week, a decent duration. You're enjoying every single ride you do because there's none that you really have to force yourself to get out and do. It's almost autopilot throughout the whole week then, and then you just end up absolutely flying. So,
yeah.
yeah, that's the biggest thing for me. That kind of structured week like that, I think, and it is quite simple at this period as well to coach athletes that want to do that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, I was talking. Kel O'Brien was out in Hellride with me this morning in sloppy conditions, but I was sort of quizzing him on what he's doing to prep up for nationals because I'm like, well, it's a very different course. It's 90% or 99% chance in my brain a break's going to win after a long fight to get into it. Then I'll go away. You might have a couple of Jacos, a couple of Cache, and then a lot of randoms, and then you're pretty much going to have like a chop off. Like it's going to be like, yeah, I was like, so
Yeah,
actually doing the Hellride, then trying to do some like on off efforts after it to simulate you got fatigued legs, you're into the last 30K, and then everyone's going to start hitting each other. I'm like, it's actually a really good simulation for the nationals for this year, like doing things like that, or
yeah,
a cup like do a hard ride and then finish it with a Q crit or yeah Glenvale or something like that, where you're actually doing
yeah.
that forced over under efforts to follow attack. So I think there's some merit to it if you can actually find a yeah, like it's a bit different to the nationals where you go out and do, 5 minute or 6 minute efforts with 5 minutes of certain intensity in the last minute where you ramp over the top or something like that. This one's far more variable. So I think there is some merit to it the way you can work it in. It's not going to be as perfect as doing structured efforts and working towards a specific target. But I think in terms of just general fitness feeling good and mentally feeling good, I think it actually goes a long way. But in terms of actual favorite effort, I think I always just loved It's like a classic, just like a 15-minute effort. You're riding it roughly, I don't know, 20 watts below threshold for 2 minutes, and then for 30 seconds you're attacking sort of like 50 to 100 watts over threshold, and then back down for 2 minutes, and just doing the over under for that for duration of a climb. I love just going out and doing 3 King Lakes of that over under, because I was always struggling with changes of pace being a diesel. So I found that something like that was always really, really beneficial for me. I could always hit the numbers, which that goes a long way to actually enjoying a session.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
it's far easier than say you telling me to go do 5 minute efforts at map when I basically can't do 5 minutes at that intensity. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we've got such a flat curve. So I think it's very easy, especially when you coach yourself, to fall back to things that you know you can do and that you're good at. I don't think I've ever prescribed myself a sprint. So like if anyone's coached me, I'll just should be going out and doing gym sprint efforts, max 30-second efforts, working on the weaknesses. But because it's a hobby, I just don't
Yep.
want to do that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that makes sense. So then, yeah, I guess that's probably factoring into your least favorite session then, which is the next question, which would be sprints. But
Yeah.
if we look at even just from your coaching least favorite sessions, what's a session that you don't tend to prescribe to people, or something that you see other people do and just think, oh, I'm not a massive fan of that one?
Um, Let me think. I think it's a well, this isn't that I'm not a fan of it, but I think it's a hard sell if you're trying to prescribe, because some athletes work well with a lot of stuff around sweet spot and everything. Others want like go full polarized, but I think for someone that's working 9 to 5, it's a pretty hard sell then to get to the weekend and just go do like 5 hours of just real easy riding. Like I
Yeah.
think, and to be paid for that advice as well, that 80% of their sessions will realistically be just tapping along at 180, 200 watts. I think is a is a hard sell as a coach a
Hmm.
lot of the time as well. Even though if someone committed to it properly and they didn't get sucked into what we are discussing before with, just like I went out on North Road ride and only rolled a little bit. It's like, well, it's not actually achieving the full
Yeah.
polarized approach. So I'd
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
um, yeah, like for
No,
me,
I think I really agree with that, because obviously you would have seen Zone 2's kicked off like crazy the last few years,
yeah,
social media and hearing what pros are doing. And like, it's funny because like you would have been on it for years and years, even whether you prescribed it as Zone 2 or were thinking as you were riding along at a pretty solid intensity, oh, this is so that I'm sitting at the top of Zone 2. But that's just always the way you've ridden. I always enjoy riding at that pace as well, just pushing a bit around everywhere. Like, I think we're both pretty similar, just allergic to sitting there rolling around at less than 100 watts on the wheel. So you just want to be able to push around at that kind of intensity. But I think so many people sort of have this idea that, okay, that's the secret, that's what everyone needs to be doing. But for
mm,
people that can only fit in like 7 to 10 hours a week of riding, if you're looking at how those can best be spent from a physiology perspective, also a psychology perspective, yeah, if you're trying to get that same kind of ratio, it's probably, while it's working for the best guys and the guys that can do 20, 25, 30 hours a week, it's probably not actually going to be that useful for the vast majority of people that are pretty time poor. It will be useful for sure, but is it the best way you can spend those 10 hours through the week? I don't really think it would be. And yeah, as you said, it's probably not going to be the most enjoyable way.
no. Well, I think if you're saying all right, get up at 5:30 in the morning and get on the trainer and ride along it. A lot of people, you think about a standard threshold for your working man, you might be maybe like 250 or something like that. So you go, all right, we'll ride along at 160 watts for your hour and a half. Like
Yeah.
it genuinely, like for me personally, like if you send me out for one of those, unless I've got a friend I'm trying to catch up with, like say did a couple of rides with mates when I went over to Spain a couple of weeks ago, where they're doing base training over there, and that's fine. Like a chin wagging away. But if I had to head out on my own and ride at 180 watts for 6 hours, like it give me, and as you said before, if you're with someone, you're sitting on a wheel, it gives me genuine anxiety, like
Hmm.
just like feeling like I'm wasting my time here. Like it
Yeah.
just stresses me out riding that easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I love
Yeah.
feeling of pressure on the pedals and feeling like you're achieving something, even though like via physiology, it probably isn't the absolute best use of time. But in terms of my enjoyment of while doing it, yeah, the super easy rides are like torture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next question then. On to the good stuff. What is your favorite loop? Favorite training loop in the world?
So, well, I'd say that the training loops heading out to Healesville from here. So I'm in Heidelberg, head out through back roads out through Mount Pleasant, usually then up King Lake, across the top, across to descend down Myers Creek. Often then my absolute favourite is then U-turn back up Myers Creek to get a Myers Creek in before a coffee stop. There used to be the habitual there that had the best muffin, but they're now a cheese and wine place. So bottle of wine when I get no.
Yeah.
The stop there in Healesville now is subpar, which is disappointing. Been hunting around a couple and they're all right, but basically then go from Healesville back across to back road to Yarra Glen past the chocolate shop and up Mount Wise, Butterman's Track, and then back in through our standard back roads through Nutfield and Mine Road. I do love that, but 2 weeks ago I had the Giro del Dolina. If that was closer to me, the actual loop around from Warburton, Reefton Spur, Lake Mountain, back up Donaby Wang, like that is the most spectacular loop and my favourite loop anywhere. So quiet, but I guess it's an hour drive out of town, so I can't just call it my standard training loop.
Yep. No, they're both definitely good ones. So yeah, to go to the Healesville one ends up being about 5 hours,
Yeah,
and
sorry.
so
Yeah,
5 hours, a bit over 3,000 climbing.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Good stuff. And then when you have efforts, and this is interesting. I'm interested to see how you prescribe these and whether it changes depending on time of year, what the goal is. Do you prescribe the efforts at the start or at the end, or you don't really care when they get them done?
I don't mind unless it's specific for a session. So I was just chatting to Steve Lane before. We do a lot of our coaching together, as well as yourself in HP Tech there. And
Yep.
yeah, we were just discussing about a simulation for this year's national course, that what we can put together. And I think with something like that, we know that the winning move is going to go deep in the race. And it is a bit more attritional. I think it is beneficial then to say, all right, you might do a couple of things early on to put some fatigue in the body, ride for a few more hours to continue that, especially if it's in the heat, and then trying to front up for efforts late on. For me personally, I think for most guys, I think you're better off having it just terrain based. Different like where you are, say in Nice, where you can head out straight up a mountain if you needed to do effort straight up. Where I think for most people that's not a reality, because if you said do it at the start, but you live down the beach, or
Yeah,
yeah, you need to get out to wherever you need to go. So I'd say for the most part, it'd be mid ride because that's where the
that's how
terrain's
it works. Yeah.
and you get the highest quality out of the efforts rather than trying to find it'll be undulating or there'll be lights or some sort of thing. Whereas if you can just get to a hill or uninterrupted stretch, then you're better off doing it there than doing them half-assed towards
Yep.
the start or finish. Whereas, yeah, I think, say, as we were discussing before about something like nationals, where I do efforts and then like some solid riding in between, and then find somewhere at the end, whether it's a velodrome or if you live in the inner city or Q Boulevard or whatever it is, where you know you can get some hard on-off style efforts done late in a ride. I think that'll be really beneficial for that style of race. But for the vast majority of riders that I coach, they might be working towards club crits or something like that, or smaller races that are only going to last 2 hours, and then you sort of can know, all right, the crunch point's here, and then I guess put the efforts in a more specific place. But for the most part, it's just where it's convenient.
Yep. And then sticking on the training stuff, this is an interesting one. Interested to see where you're sitting on this one now. Cross training. Are you prescribing any cross training to your athletes, or have you actually started doing any of it at any point yourself?
um, well, I actually when I had my son Sebastian, well, I didn't physically have him, but when he arrived, he as he grew bigger and bigger, and you're picking up a child 100 odd times a day. My early on, I started getting a sore lower back while I was riding. On from all the bending over and the cutting out, and then as
Yeah.
I
Okay.
got stronger, and you pick him up in weird angles over here, over
Yeah.
there. So my general core and overall body strength was the best. I remember I actually I was like skipping rocks down at the river, and for once I didn't actually get DOMS the next day. So I actually did get stronger from that. But I actually started doing a bit of running. I think running is really beneficial, but I always blow my knee out pretty quickly because I don't ease into it properly. We obviously know the benefits of gym, and some guys have started putting more gym in the program. Um,
Yep.
the It depends on the age as well. Like I'm not so big on doing it for real young guys. As they get older, I
Yep.
think gym's more beneficial. But if you only got 8 to 10 hours spare in the week, I'd probably still prefer to put it on the bike than off the bike. I think if
Yep.
you're someone that has ample time and you've got time to ride 20 hours, and then I can say go do, you can go do sauna on top, or I think core work is something that guys should do all year round. Despite I never get around to really doing it anymore, but used to do it religiously after every single ride. I'd walk in the door, do it, and then be done. Yeah, I think the benefits of running and gym are now quite evident. Like just from running, learning how to actually pace yourself properly goes a long way. And being comfortable, being uncomfortable, I think is what a big thing that running does. That yeah, you settle in a really high heart rate. And it's almost like time trial mode where yeah, you learn how to pace yourself properly. Whereas yeah, but I can't physically do it myself because my knee ended up blowing out after a few runs. But I've been trying to do a bit because I think it is helps with weight management. So yeah, I prescribe gym. I don't overly prescribe running because I think it's a personal thing, and if you hate running, then you're not really
Yep.
going to enjoy it. But it's
Yep.
I'm certainly not against it. If a couple of my guys are like, "Can we fit in a run?" Then I'd say, "Yeah, go to town."
Yep. Well, I'm yeah. As we're recording this, I'm planning on doing a marathon starting in about 12 hours time. So I will, after that point, never be running again, I imagine. So I'll check back in for how I feel about running then. But I have been doing a few runs and enjoying it until then.
I've
Uh,
been impressed on Strava, so I've been very impressed.
yeah, been quick for short periods for someone with very short legs. Well, quick is a stretch, but not that slow for short periods. But it's going to be interesting if I can just hold it together for 42 k's without falling apart. So
Four, four,
you'll have to check what
4 minute
happens.
pace for average, you reckon? Yeah.
That's the plan. Well, I've talked big game to the reason I'm doing is I had a few mates that did the Melbourne Marathon, and I gave them so much shit about their times for athletes or have been athletes that I figured out to put my money where my mouth is. The issue is I've picked a course that's super hilly and not known for having fast marathon times, so that's going to be painful. But I figure the on-off aspect of the hills should suit cycling a bit more than
Yeah.
running. So
As they say, if you can't do sub 3, you haven't really run a marathon.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think it'll either be a 2:59 or a 3:40. That's it'll be
Yeah.
one or the other, depending on how it goes. But anyway, we'll get into the rapid fire round before we finish up here. So quick fire, would you rather? So aero or lightweight?
Aero.
Oh, really? You've
Yeah, I've
changed there? Or? Yeah.
changed. I've also drilled holes out of it while making an aero. Yeah,
Yeah, perfect.
but
Best
I'd
of
take
both
an
worlds.
aero bike over a climbing bike any day of the week.
Yeah, okay. Disc or rim brake?
Also changed. I'm now disc. Yeah, I think
Yep.
I just got on a rim brake bike. I was mucking around. I was coming down a descent, and I went to stop, and I was terrified at how poorly I could actually
Mhm.
stop. I was the very much the old school thing of like, why do they even change it? They stop fine, and they're way lighter, and like I understand the actual mechanics of how to change a cable and all this. I
Yep.
don't know how to bleed a brake, and then yeah, now I'm very much disc brake, mate.
Yep. Tubeless tire or clincher tire?
Same. Change the tubeless.
Yeah, okay. Jeez, yeah, this modern man.
Yeah.
Saddlebag or handlebar bag?
Saddlebag. The
Yeah,
aerodynamics of a handlebar are horrible.
yeah, hurts when you've just got that bike that they've put so much money into making go fast and then
Yeah,
putting a handlebar bag on it.
yeah.
Socks over or under leg warmers?
There. Socks under, booties over.
Yep. Gloves or no gloves?
Typically no gloves for me.
Yeah, okay. Just don't care about your hands.
Well, like when you're riding this long, they're basically leather anyway.
Yeah,
The
just
high
the
grade
the,
leather.
the road gets cut up when your hands slide across them. Heat or altitude training?
um, in terms of the benefits or what I'd do.
Both. Well, usually
Uh,
it's the same. Usually, if you think there's one more beneficial, you'd do it more. But
well, I don't have altitude at hand, and I don't know.
yeah,
I think altitude 10 I could probably organise, but my wife wouldn't be sold on it. So
yeah,
I think the actual benefits of going up altitude would be amazing. I was even doing a couple of weeks in Andorra with Hague at one point, I got shredded and felt really good from it. But in general, for heat, it's way more accessible. Everyone
Yep.
has most people have a hot bath, for example, or can jump in the sauna, or even just chuck a rain jacket on the ergo. And I think the benefits you can get from it are quite massive, and don't cost you anything. So
Yep.
I'd say heat, very accessible.
Yep. Town sign sprints or com hunting?
Com hunting.
Yep. I don't think have you won a town sign sprint ever?
What are they? Never.
uh, early morning rides or pro hours?
Early morning these days. I actually
Yeah.
like hitting it on the head. Get stressed now if I'm getting home too late, thinking of don't have enough time left in the day to do things.
Yep. Rico ride or day off completely?
Um, Generally day off completely.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Rico ride will make you feel better in general, but yeah, I usually try to make it that I guess put more time into hanging out with my son and getting work stuff and getting organised so that I can enjoy training days more.
Yep. Sweet or savory food?
Mate, I've got a mad sweet tooth. Yeah, I eat all food. I eat a lot of food, but geez, I couldn't go a day without chocolate.
Yeah. Okay. Would you rather ride with a half wheeler or a wheel sucker?
Um, Probably a wheel sucker actually, because I have no issues riding on the front. I think I'd
Yeah.
can get quite irritated by the getting half wheeled all day. Although actually, if I was stronger than them, then I'd be that. You know what's going to happen? As I used to love to tell a few people, I'm like, don't make it bleed if you can't kill it.
Yep. So if you're going to line up next to Marko, you want to make sure you've got his measure then, which is probably not too many people. So maybe just jump on the wheel clearly. Squeaky disc brake or creaky bottom bracket?
Disc brake.
Yep. And would you prefer a hunger flat or to be severely dehydrated?
Hunger flat. The dehydration when you go down that, and it gets worse and worse, is horrific.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. But then the amount of glory you get when you finally eat something, incredible. You don't get
Yeah.
that. You don't get that from your first sip of water. Um,
Yeah, it's true. No, most of the best foods, when I recall the best tasting things I've ever had, it's just post hunger flat. Could be just a Coles like pre-made sandwich, and it's still incredibly good.
just like a cheese and bacon, like just anything you've got in the house. You're like, this tastes incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
basically equivalent of a kebab when you're drunk.
Yeah, yeah, same logic.
Yeah.
All right, very last question. What is your best piece of advice?
That is tough. I would say, we were talking about it earlier. You got to love it. So I'd say find what you enjoy and then really like home in on that sort of thing. It's yeah, that's pretty much like so much to love about cycling. I think advice that I gave to you, and this would probably be for any up and coming young guys like yourself, Cyrus, is
Yeah,
uh,
still young.
yeah, that's right. Like, cycling can take you so many places.
Yeah,
So many guys like, like I'm out of under 23s, didn't get a pro contract, racket disappear. Whereas I'm like, and you're very much the same of doing a similar thing. What I've done is, you got the rest of your life to work.
mm,
You can get by, and yeah, you're not having to live on the street. Like, do it as long as you can, because you're not going to get this opportunity again where you're this strong, this fit, ready to go, and can travel the world and see so many things. You have to work a long, long time to be able to go over and do the things that you're just doing day to day. As I said the other
yeah,
last week, she was like rollerblading around the lake in Nice,
yeah.
all getting
No,
paid. Yeah.
yeah, I agree completely. Like, yeah, you. I don't know when you were my sports director whether you would have said it that explicitly, but you're obviously a role model to most of us that you can just enjoy it no matter what level that you are at, and I guess you've been able to enjoy it at basically every level of the sport. So yeah, whether that's even yeah, being even as a sports director, I think you realise that you were just enjoying riding, which is part of the reason that you're still riding now. But that's one thing I just always part of my coaching philosophy. I know it's similar for you. Is just the most important thing is that you're enjoying it. So when I'm a coach, the first thing I say to any athlete on the call that they give is my goal is to just make you sure that you enjoy the sport more as a result of having me as a coach. And then I think from that, you guarantee the performance is going to improve. Like, I've never ever seen someone that's found more enjoyment and then got less out of the sport because of getting more enjoyment out of it. So
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing, is just finding what, as you said, finding what you enjoy in the sport, and then seeing the places that it can take you. Now the sport is more, I guess, has more pathways than ever. They're not necessarily to the top of the sport, like that's a whole new podcast to get into the pathways to the top,
Yeah.
but there is pathways going in all different directions that can take you anywhere. So I've explored plenty of those pathways in the past. I didn't know that any of them would lead me to the top, but I was pretty happy to explore them because I was enjoying it at the time. And then now I'll be going in a different direction next year, but I'm pretty confident that I'll enjoy it because I'm always picking things that I enjoy doing along the way, and then enjoy riding my bike. So I think that piece of advice is just a great one. If you find the things that you enjoy, put the effort and the energy into that, and then good things will come from it.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't have said it better, mate.
Yep. Perfect. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I'm sure I'll see you soon when I commit to pinning a number on at Hawthorn. I did enter the other week and it got rained out, so I've been telling everyone that's been complaining that I haven't been getting down there that I was planning on it.
And Cal
But
O'Brien's there too. Apparently he's coming Wednesday, but you won't be able to walk next Wednesday. But
nah, I don't know about that one. Maybe the Wednesday after.
I'll
But no,
rent.
thanks very much for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it.
No worries at all, mate. I'll see you
Cheers.
soon.
Yep.
Thanks, up.
And just quickly for everyone watching, merch is available. We've got hats. I had so many people asking from overseas. I couldn't work out how to ship stuff. So now you can just go online and buy it. It'll come straight to your door. There's hats, there's bucket hats, there's t-shirts. Check out the link in the description and go and get yourself some sweet kit. And then that way I don't have to chase everyone up in person at the local race, and I can just focus on beating Marko when I get there. So thanks everyone for listening. Make sure you subscribe for the next one and leave a comment on what you want to hear. Cheers. Thanks, guys.